What's up, guys? I'm the East Coaster fan, and since it's winter right now, in fact it's snowing outside as of the recording of this video, I thought it'd be fun to do another predictions video. I did this last year at the beginning of 2024 and had a really great time doing so. In fact, just a few weeks ago I did a video kind of looking back at those predictions. And in that video I realized that even though I got a lot right, I was kind of playing it safe. So this year I want to make 10 predictions as well that were a little more daring. So when we come back to this at the end of 2025, it'll be more interesting to look at. But that's not all, because I decided to reach out to all of you, my followers, because I was really interested to see what you think is going to happen in 2025. And I think it would be more fun for me to kind of react to your predictions and come back to those as well. So the way this is going to work is that we're going to go through your predictions first and then go through my 10 predictions at the very end of the video. So if you're just interested in hearing mine, you can skip ahead. Otherwise, let's take a look at what you guys had to say. Our first prediction comes from Peter Coasters, and that is Top Thrill 2, or TT2, never opens. Right now it's under renovation and it's aiming to open at the beginning of the season, supposedly, in May of 2025. Whether this ends up being the case, I don't know, because right now it seems like work is still being done on it. But we'll just have to wait and see. There is a good chance that it will reopen just because of the confidence coming from Cedar Point, especially at No Coaster Con, and the fact that it is testing. So I am optimistic, but we'll have to see. Moving on to Coasters and Cons, who said Top Thrill 2 does not reopen. Thought it'd be funny to put these back to back. In all seriousness, Coasters and Cons had two other predictions. The first are that tilt coasters are the MVPs of 2025, and that's actually a good one in my opinion. We have Siren's Curse opening at Cedar Point, as well as Circuit Breaker opening supposedly at Codaland in 2025. And I think these rides are going to be things that people really like. It's a really unique feature, and the rest of the ride layouts look a lot of fun. The other prediction Coasters and Cons has is that Flash is going to be hated, which is kind of interesting. I think it's going to be liked by the general public, but I think as an enthusiast, it's going to be almost a love-hate relationship with the ride. I think it's going to get long lines for sure, especially during the summer. But as a ride experience, I think it's going to be well done. And seeing what Six Flags Great Adventure has left, it might be one of the best rides at that park now. Moving on to our next prediction, El Toro will be smooth. I wonder who came up with this prediction. Figured Mr. Toro would write that. One of my friends, Cam, who runs Hyper Thrills, put Hershey Park announces a Vekoma family launch coaster for 2026. And I think this is going to be an accurate one. If you look at the timeline for when Hershey gets roller coasters, it would line up that a new roller coaster is coming next year. Think about it. In 2023, we got Wildcats Revenge. 3 years before that, we got Candemonium. And then if you want to be critical, 3 years before Candy was Breaker's Edge, which Hershey Park considers a roller coaster. So it would go along with their timeline that Hershey Park has. And I think a Vekoma family launch coaster in the vein of like Big Bear Mountain would be a fantastic fit for this park. Where it would go, I have no idea, but this is just a prediction right now, so we'll see if it comes true. Sky Guy R-Turn12 commented that King's Dominion will still not be as fantastic as Busch Gardens Williamsburg in 2025. And this is a tough one because both are going to be celebrating their 50th anniversaries, which are really big milestones unless you're Great Adventure. I'm really not sure. It's going to be a close battle, but my gut is telling me that Busch Gardens is going to do it better than King's Dominion. And that's just not me being a Busch Gardens Williamsburg fan. I mean, it is my favorite park after all. I just think that in the anniversaries I've seen before, like the 40th, they did a really great job then, so I'm hoping they do even better for its 50th. Jackson Loves Roller Coasters left 3 different predictions. The first is that Flash Vertical Velocity at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom is going to close at the end of the 2025 season. I'll be honest, I agree with this one, because it is such a problematic roller coaster, and the parts for it can be used for the other impulses throughout the chain, like Steel Venom and Possessed. I do love its unique 45-degree incline, but if it's just standing there, why keep it open? And we've seen that the Six Flags Entertainment Corporation is completely fine with removing coasters and rides that are just standing idle. We saw Lava Bora get removed at Over Texas, and that was a similar situation in my eyes. In fact, I could see this happening around summertime, that we hear of a closure. Or it just closes. because that's what Six Flags does. Your second prediction was that Stardust Racers will win the Best New Coaster category at the Golden Ticket Awards, and this is one that I've been debating for a while as well. I think it's really between Stardust Racers and Alpen Fury in my mind, as those are really the two headliners for 2025, at least in North America. I think what's going to really boost Stardust Racers and potentially put it over the edge for Best New Coaster is the amount of exposure it gets. I mean, it's at Epic Universe. Of course it's going to get more attention, but also the theming that comes with it as well. If it's a great coaster and has fantastic theming, even in the vein of like a Velocicoaster, I think people are really going to like this ride. Plus, the dueling factor is just going to make it so much fun. Twin Mill Racer, which if you don't know what this is the Hot Wheels coaster coming to Mattel Adventure Park, will be the sleeper hit of the year. And this is a coaster that isn't really being talked about much. I mean, the whole park got delayed by a year, so right now discussions of this ride aren't really being made. But I can see this being a sleeper hit, especially since it's a Chance Hyper GTX. We haven't seen one of those in a really long time. It looks like a great layout, and if it's in Arizona, it's gonna be kind of hidden out there. So I could definitely see this being a sleeper hit, and it'll obviously be the star of that park when it opens. I'd like to thank Michael from Blue Diamond Coasters for sending me a freaking list of predictions. Dinosaur will close in January 2026. Yeah. Muppet Vision 3D will move to a new location after it closes. I don't think this is going to happen in 2025. However, I think Muppet Vision will close in 2025. If I had to throw a time frame out there, I'd say maybe towards the end of summer, which still gives people a lot of time to go say their goodbyes to Muppet Vision 3D. But I don't think it's going to be moved within 2025. I think if that ever happens, it's going to happen much later. Big Bad Wolf, Wolf's Revenge, as well as Rapterra will be unfairly compared to their predecessors. Let me start off with that real quick, and yeah, I do think this is going to happen. Let's start with Busch Gardens Williamsburg, in that it's a coaster going in the Dragonfire plot, but it's also using the legacy of Big Bad Wolf to help market it. Of course, those comparisons are going to be made, myself included as someone who's ridden Big Bad Wolf, but I don't think it's going to be as strong as Rapterra is going to be, since that is going in the plot of Volcano, a fan favorite roller coaster by both general public and enthusiasts. This is going to have to be a really great follow-up to that ride in order to basically explain its existence. And I think despite what we see online of any sort of B&M rattles or shaky launches, I think the general public is going to like it. But these are coasters that are going to be unfairly compared. And then in terms of the second part of that with Kingda Ka, no matter what the ride is, it could be a Mach Spinner, Mach Tower coaster, a freaking Velocicoaster clone, I don't know. It will be unfairly compared as well, and that's going to be a tall order for Six Flags to figure out. Siren's Curse will be overshadowed by Alpen Fury and Top Thrill 2. Interesting one, because this is the new coaster going in. The other is a renovation at the same park, and of course Alpen Fury, a little bit north in Canada. And I actually think it's not going to be overshadowed. I think it's just going to be its own separate thing. You have these three coasters that exist, and I don't think any one is going to be overshadowed. They're all just going to coexist with one another. The closed flat rides at Carowinds and King's Dominion will find homes at other Six Flags parks. And sadly, I don't think this is going to happen. Let's look first at Carowinds. You have Screamweaver and the Drop Tower, and then with King's Dominion you have Berserker that was announced to be taken out. And the fact that these rides are all fairly old and kind of hard to come by, I don't think there's going to be any sort of ride relocation. In fact, I think it would be more beneficial and probably cheaper to buy newer flat rides. In terms of the Carowinds rides, there are supplements to that in the market today. You have an Endeavor and newer drop towers. You can even add an S&S tower over there if you'd really like to. Berserker is going to be a lot tougher since there isn't really anything like that in the market today. But there are plenty of other inverting flats that can be picked, or you can just use that plot for something else. But I don't think those rides are going to be relocated, even though they'd all work well at Great Adventure. Speaking of Great Adventure, Magic Mountain, and Fiesta Texas will drop the Six Flags name and revert back to their original titles. And at the time of this recording, this is kind of happening already. We see a renovation is going on at Magic Mountain's iconic sign along the freeway. And instead of going back to its traditional Six Flags California, it's actually going back to the Magic Mountain logo from like when the park first opened. It's really interesting. If you compare the logo to the old ads, the font is exactly the same. So I don't think this is a coincidence. And if you look at Great Adventure, they marketed this year's Holiday in the Park as Great Adventure's Holiday in the Park. So that could be a sign, as well as many other aesthetic changes we notice on its last day. Fiesta Texas is just Fiesta Texas. This is a hit or miss, but I could see it going back to its original name. It would be really cool to see. Epic Universe is overall a huge success. However, enthusiasts will complain about DK for being an underwhelming ride experience. I think this is going to happen to both DK as well as the Hiccups Wing Gliders coasters, as both of these are the rides aimed towards younger kids, but honestly, it's kind of what I'm expecting with them, and I'll be fine with riding Stardust Racers all the time anyway, so I don't mind. But in terms of this prediction, I don't really think it's going to happen. I think people are going to go into those ride experiences more so for the theming and storytelling than coaster riding, but doozies be doozies, I guess. 2026 roller coasters will be announced for Busch Gardens Tampa, Knoebels, and Six Flags America. With Busch Gardens Tampa, their last roller coaster was this past year, Phoenix Rising. I don't think 2026 is going to be a roller coaster year for Tampa. Knoebels, on the other hand, I think is guaranteed almost to be a roller coaster year. And the biggest reason for that is that 2026 is going to be Knoebels' 100th season. And I think they're going to go all out for it with a new coaster. If you go back, their last coaster was about 10 years ago with Impulse, and I feel it's time. I have no idea what they go with. Knoebels is sort of a wild card, but I think they could put in something really cool for its 100th anniversary. And then Six Flags America, yeah, no. And then the last prediction from you guys comes from trip bloggers. People will be disappointed. 100%. So thanks to all of you who submitted predictions, but now it's time to go through my own official 10 predictions for the 2025 season. And for the fun of it, I decided to make these different from what you guys submitted, so we could have a real comparison with all of our predictions at the end of the year. So starting off with the first prediction, the Steel Curtain renovation will be a success for Kennywood. So if you're unaware, Steel Curtain is an SNS roller coaster at Kennywood. It underwent a year-long renovation in 2024 and should hopefully be back and fixed for 2025. And I think the Kennywood team and SNS, or whoever really did the renovations, were hopefully able to figure everything out, and I think Steel Curtain's gonna be back and operating the best it has ever. But I still think it's gonna have its little lift. I don't think that's going away, unfortunately. My second prediction is that B&Ms will face a similar problem with smoothness as they did in 2024. Now in the US, we have rides like Wrath of Rakshasa and Big Bad Wolf opening, and unfortunately, I think they're gonna ride just as rough. Now the only 2024 B&M that I've ridden is Iron Menace, and that thing definitely has a shuffle to it. But going to a new ride for this year, Rapterra, I think it's gonna have that same problem. I mean, we saw it in the launch video released by King's Dominion. It's a shame, but I think it's going to be just this ongoing issue with B&Ms, at least for the foreseeable future. Speaking of B&M, this is kind of an interesting one I'm throwing in there. I think we're going to see another B&M coaster close in 2025. Now, I'm not limiting this to American coasters. Even though there are a few old B&Ms out there, you have, Kumba, you got the ones at CGA. There are some old ones in the US that could close due to age or if parks deem them unprofitable. But there are also plenty of B&Ms out in the world, and we've only seen 2 B&Ms, 3 if you count both sides of Dragon Challenge, be demolished ever. It's kind of crazy how many B&M coasters are still around and how old some are. But again, I thought this would be a fun one to throw in there, and we'll see if I'm right at the end of the year. Now, it's kind of a tradition that I like to make one of my predictions be Adventureland based, and I was having a really hard time coming up with one this year. So instead of making one more specifically about Adventureland, I decided to do one about the ride they're getting, Wave Twister. If you didn't know, this is an RES Wave Twist model, and it'll be a prototype, the first one ever, going to Adventureland Long Island. So my prediction is that we're going to hear the announcement of another Wave Twist going to a park in 2026. I think this will be announced around summertime, so it'll give a bit of an opportunity for parks to see the performance of the Wave Twister going to Adventureland, as well as RES. They can make tweaks and kind of film B-roll footage with it and it'll allow other parks to look at it and maybe think of buying it. Of course, that's if Wave Twister's good. My 5th prediction is relating to a coaster I feel like a lot of people have forgotten about, and that is Montezuma. Yeah, remember this project? I think 2025 is going to be the year this whole Montezuma the Forbidden Fortress project gets cancelled. We haven't heard anything from Knott's Berry Farm about it. There's been no movement in terms of construction. This whole project seems like it's been doomed from the start. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be the end of it. We're going to hear a confirmation from Knott saying, hey, we tried, but nothing's working and we're going to move on. Which is a real shame too, because I love my rides on Montezuma's Revenge, and I wish another coaster company would be able to replicate it. And unfortunately, it's not Kumbach. Another kind of out there prediction that I'm going to make is that Superman Ultimate Flight at Six Flags Great Adventure is going to remain SB&O for all of 2025. Now, my logic for this is kind of based on where it's placed in the park. If you look at the whole boardwalk section of Great Adventure, you're going to have this lone coaster at the bottom of the park. Golden Kingdom's obviously going to be cut off, and I think there's going to be a lot of construction over there. You don't have Twister, you don't have Parachute Tower, you don't have Green Lantern. So what's the point of making this weird path that goes to Superman? I don't think there is much sense, and I think it's going to remain closed for that reason. You can even do what is done during Holiday in the Park, but instead of obviously blocking it off by Plaza del Carnaval, you open up those areas and go down to Medusa, of course. But I think the park could save money if they wanted to by just saying, hey, listen, we're not going to be running Superman this year for this reason. My 7th prediction is that the holding brake is going to be making a return at some point in 2025 to Possessed. If you don't know about the holding brake, this is a feature that was seen on Intamin's Impulse coasters on its back vertical spike, where there are a bunch of brakes in place, and when it goes up that spike a second time, it holds the train there for about 1 or 2 seconds, and then drops it from there. This has been a feature that the ride opened with, but then it's kind of been finicky and eventually just stopped working. Now, you might be wondering why I kind of come up with this oddball prediction. Well, it all stems from this Dorney Instagram post, where there were talk about exciting things coming for 2025, and prominently showed the picture of Possessed's vertical spike. Maybe I'm thinking too much about this, but I think it would be really cool to see this announced. Heck, maybe it could be announced at East Coaster. That would be really cool. Of course, I had to make one prediction regarding Epic Universe, as I feel like it's going to be the biggest story in 2025. And the prediction I'm going to make is revolving around Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein experiment, which is probably my most anticipated ride at that park. Yes, above the coasters. Similar to the golden ticket prediction made before, I think this is going to win the best new dark ride of 2025, which is kind of tough because there's a lot of cool dark rides coming to that park, and it was kind of tough selecting which dark ride it would be. I mean, it could be the Harry Potter one, it could be Mario Kart. It's probably not going to be that, but you never know. Or it could keep being Rise of the Resistance, I don't know. But I do think the Golden Ticket Awards are going to recognize an Epic Universe dark ride this year, and my pick's going to be Frankenstein Experiment. I only have 2 more predictions, and my second to last one is that Fright Fest Extreme is going to drop the Extreme from it. This is an experiment that I just don't think worked at all in 2024, and in my eyes I think it's just best to go back to the normal Fright Fest IP. You can still have the different properties as houses, or you can just make them all original. I mean, they were the best houses this past year. I would avoid using Extreme in the future, and I really hope that they go back to it, just because, I don't know, I was never a big fan of the title to begin with. Now for my last prediction, this is actually going to be going back to Hershey, but not Hershey Park. It's actually going to be with Chocolate World. Every 10 years or so, it seems that the dark ride at Chocolate World gets a big upgrade, and I really wasn't sure if it was going to get it for its 50th. We saw some updates to the end of the ride with the changing of the video, but that was really it. The last update done to this ride was in 2016, and the ride saw a lot of changes, but I feel like its time is up, and it's going to close this summer for a year-long renovation. If you want a new Chocolate World ride in 2026, you're going to have to close it in the summer to undergo that long renovation. And I would be all down for this, honestly. I love seeing this ride renovated with all the newest dark ride technology. In the 2016 update, projection mapping was the big thing, and Looking at it now, it's kind of iffy, so I'd love to see those refined. I'd love to see new effects. Oh, and add the classic cows back, because I loved that as a kid. So there we go. Those are your predictions as well as my own 10 for 2025. What do you think of my predictions? Do you think they're good? Do you think they're bad? Do you think they're crazy and I'm out of my mind? I don't know. Leave them in the comments below because I'm really interested in your thoughts. And once again, I'll be coming back to these predictions at the end of 2025 to see how right or wrong I possibly was. So thank you all for watching, and let's hope I get at least one right.